How's it going, everybody? This is episode 13, I think it is, or 14. I've lost track a little bit, and we'll get onto that in a minute. We're here in Dubai. It's 6 a.m. and on Monday morning we're going to get ready to go and help with the setup for the exhibition, take a look at where the stand area is, have a general meeting with all the Tetra Pak guys who are here this year to help out and talk with customers. So that's going to be an interesting round for the morning. I didn't get to vlog the last 2 days, and that's something that I have not been very happy about. I was travelling on Saturday and most of yesterday as well, a little bit jet lagged, although we did manage our jet lag very well with a lot of hydration. We got a few videos I'm going to put together with that I took yesterday, and then we went to the Mall of Dubai, or the Dubai Mall, yesterday evening. Took a walk around, got some new t-shirts because I also didn't try on all the shirts that I brought with me, and 2 of them are way too big now that I've lost some weight. So that was nice, but also a bit frustrating because I could have easily brought something else. So that's a bit irritating there. So it's going to be a really short episode today. Just wanted to talk about the jet lag management. We've been hydrating. We've been using our hydrator from Vega Sports instead of our liquid IV, and I'm going to post a video specifically about why we're using this and not the liquid IV later. But that's helped us stay really hydrated. We drank lots of water on the plane. We ate lots of fruit. We went through everything that we talked about in the Managed Jet Lag video, and it worked out super good. So we're very happy about that. And I didn't sleep very much on the flight. I worked a bit, watched some movies, but still, yesterday was a pretty good day. I didn't feel jet lagged, hardly at all. So I'm very happy about that. But I'm not so happy about not being able to vlog. It's a habit that I've got into now for nearly 2 weeks. And to do it for 2 days, not to do it for 2 days in a row, I sort of missed it, to be honest. And I really wish that I had done it, but it just wasn't part of my routine for when I travel. And so it didn't feel familiar, in an airport, or in the morning when I got up, or in the hotel once I arrived yesterday afternoon, to just go around and start editing the video. It just didn't feel right for me. And so that's something that I've got to work on and got to try and be better at, and that's why I'm recording this episode now this morning, and then I'm going to probably upload another episode this afternoon as well, to try and catch up the next couple of days, because whilst I know there's probably not too many of you out there who are burning, for these episodes that I've missed doing, it's not for you guys, sorry, it's for me. It's a practice for me, and I enjoy it, and so that's what I'm going to have to do for myself. I got a question on my video that I did about liking life in Texas the other day, which was, what's the difference between life in Texas and life in Sweden? So I thought I would go into talking about that for a few more minutes for the rest of this episode. Sweden and Texas are obviously 2 very different things, or Sweden and the USA are 2 very different places, and I think there's a few different aspects that you can compare them on, or at least aspects that I think are important. Now, I don't want to get, too political, or any. In fact, I'm not going to get political at all in this. So we're going to start with the weather. Sweden, where I lived in south of Sweden, in Malmö, is very northern European weather, as in it's grey and it rains a lot of the time. It has fantastic summers where the temperature is just almost perfect, when it gets up there, or even when it doesn't, it's just absolutely fantastic in the summer. But for 6 months of the year, it's grey, it's wet, it's windy, and it's miserable. Now, if you're Northern European like me, that doesn't actually cause you much of a problem, and I never really had a problem with the weather. But if you're from other places, I have some Mexican friends in Sweden, for example, you can really struggle with that sort of thing, and it's something that you really need to be cognizant of if you're going to move there. Going for a vacation, it's not a problem. You just pack a rain jacket and a good pair of boots, and you're good to go. But living there, you do need to get used to the fact that you're going to be in a dark place for quite a few days, or quite a few weeks and months actually, and it's going to be wet and windy, and it's just, the weather's a little bit unpleasant. Doesn't bother me, but I could say that in contrast, in the USA, we have much hotter summers generally in most of the states. Now, you can go up to the northeast or the northwest and you can get fairly similar climate to Northern Europe in some ways, but it's still quite different because you've got a sort of a strong oceanic area, and then in the mid you've got the tundra area, which is much drier, lower humidity. In Texas, the summers are way too hot for me. I thought I could resist them, but they are just killing me. I've spent 2 summers in Texas now, and I've baked my ass off, and it's too hot for me. And it's not a climate that I'm used to. It's not a climate that I've been brought up in, and it just kills me. Whereas I talked to my Texan friend the other day, and he's hating the fact that the weather has changed already. It's just switched to being colder, but it's not. It's still like a Swedish summer, to be fair. And he's hating the cold, and I just don't understand it because he hates the hot as well. So it's a bit weird for me. Personally, I think the ideal climate in the USA for me is anywhere from sort of North Carolina and upwards. Obviously, you're avoiding tornado areas a little bit there. You're still not maybe getting a lot of snow, but I like the Northern European climate, and that's what I like. And I also much more enjoy the climate when you're close to the sea, whether it be the Atlantic or the Pacific, or the Öresund or the North Sea, as you can be in Sweden. That seems to also attract me a lot more. The other thing that I think about when I think about US versus Sweden and my time living in both of those is transportation. I lived in Sweden for 9 years. I never owned a car. I rented a car probably on 5 occasions during the whole time I was staying there, in order to do various things, usually for doing IKEA trips or to drive up into Sweden for visiting friends or going to check something out. And that worked brilliantly for me. In Malmo, they have a really good bus system. They have a really good train system. You can also use your bike to get around everywhere. It's flat, so all you've got to worry about is the rain and wind. And that's not usually a big deal, to be honest, once you get used to it. Although in the latter years, because I live very close to a bus stop, I actually stopped using the bike completely, and I just used to either use the bus or I used to walk if the weather was really good and I had time. And that was great, and that obviously promotes a big saving. And in the US now, I have, as some of you will know, I have a big pickup truck, which I absolutely love. Probably because I spent 9 years without a car. I then went a bit over the top when I moved to the USA. But that's also incredibly practical to have in Texas, because everywhere in Texas is built for big cars. You can't live in Texas without a car. There is no or little to no public transport, particularly where I live. So it would be impossible for me to basically get around unless I relied on my own car or I relied on Uber or something like that. So those are the 2 things that you have to consider as well. And of course there are places in the US that you can live where you don't need transportation, like New York City, like the Bay Area, the Boston area I assume is also the same. But those are very isolated little pockets, whereas in Sweden, for the most part, unless you're living in one of the more remote villages, which are not very popular to live in, all the towns and cities have very good transportation, and they have very good transportation between them as well, which I think is really key. And I could get the train over to Denmark. I used to get the train to the airport all the time, and that worked really well from a transportation point of view. If I own the truck that I own in the USA now in Sweden, and this comes to my third point, affordability, I couldn't afford to own that truck in Sweden. The fuel bill alone would be crippling. I mean, it would be probably 500 euros a month for me to fuel that car for the amount of driving that I would do. Then you've got the tax on top of that, the cost of the vehicle with the additional tax on the purchase of the vehicle. It just wouldn't be affordable in any way, shape or form. And that's something to consider as well, is that the cost of living in the US, I think, or I understand, is a lot lower. Now, you have generally higher salaries in the US, you have generally lower taxes in the USA than you do in Sweden. You also have a general lower cost of groceries, and goods tend to be a lot cheaper. So there isn't much in the USA that is more expensive than it is in Sweden. Housing, I think, is a little bit more expensive, particularly if you're in one of the cities. So I rented a 2-bedroom apartment, which was a nice and a good size, and that was a lot more expensive than my 1-bedroom apartment in Sweden. So that's my thoughts about the difference between Sweden and the USA. I hope that was interesting for you guys. We've run a little bit longer than I was expecting this morning, but that's not a problem. We'll fill in even more this evening and let you know how it went with the preparations for Gulf Foods. Catch you later.